Bad news, 21 rushing yards on the ground in a 16-13.
With reaction, I'm going to go to our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones, here first. JJ, this is something that we were awaiting after the injury. It looked like what it was, and now it is that. What are we hearing from Kansas City?
So right now, they are exploring surgical options. And obviously, surgery is going to be necessary for the torn ACL. You know, sometimes with an ACL, you can't have surgery immediately because of swelling that may be going on at the location of the necessary surgery. And so it could take a little bit. It could also be a few days. We'll see. But why am I talking about when the surgery is going to take place? Because at this point, you were talking about very precious days in order for him to make it back for the start of the 2026 season. Typically, and I mean very generally speaking, because everyone's body is different, but a torn ACL recovery is around 8 months. So if he were to have surgery this upcoming week, 8 months from then is right up against the start of the 2026 NFL season. So we're talking about in danger of Patrick Mahomes potentially missing week 1. So every day right now is very important. But of course, they're going to do what is best for him, for the health of his knee. The hope, of course, is going to be that after surgery, he makes a full recovery. Plenty of guys, look, he's 30 years old. He should make a full recovery from this. It should be in the rearview mirror for him whenever he does make his return. Of course, Tom Brady tore his ACL at his age 31 season, went on to play 12, 13, 14 more years. So this is not a career ender by any means, but it certainly is a season ender. And the start of the 2026 season is certainly going to be in question for Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, this is a roster that needs retooling, as we've seen throughout this season, and that's the pillar around which you retool BMAC. We were talking upstairs even before this became official that this is going to be a different January, February, and offseason for the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe one that this roster needed after all the fatigue of this last 7 years of success. This is going to be a vastly different offseason for Patrick Mahomes now.
Very, very much so. When you talk about Pat Mahomes, just as a quarterback for the Chiefs, he's been in the playoffs 8 straight seasons. I mean, dating back to 2017. He's played in 21 playoff games and high-intensity games, to say the least. So this is unfamiliar territory for Pat Mahomes, clearly with the surgery to his ACL, but not being in postseason play, not being in that playoff conversation before Christmas is unfamiliar for the entire Chiefs organization and their fans. But this is an opportunity for them to kind of recalibrate things because they've been the hunted for quite some time. Now, when you look at their division in the AFC West, there will be a new king of the West. Then you look at what is going on with the surgence of the Los Angeles Chargers. For Kansas City, they got to keep up with the Joneses now. Once upon a time, everyone was keeping up with them. But when you talk about the talent or the lack thereof, being able to get quality playmakers on both sides of the football field and continue to protect your quarterback, all of those things were very, very concerning and alarming this season, and hopefully they have the resources to be able to get back into that competitive landscape from what we've been grown accustomed to seeing.
It's a moment to reflect, and it's not the one you want served to you, but we're sitting here and we may have just watched the last game that Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes played together, depending on what the future Hall of Famer tight end decides to do. But there will be a road ahead for Patrick Mahomes. It's surgery first, it's recovery, then it's more football. Emery, you received this news, and the first thought to your head is what?
Again, I'm not Patrick Mahomes, but having torn my ACL twice, this is what I'm interested to see when Mahomes comes back. Will he change his style? We know Mahomes to be the guy that kind of scrambles around, buy times in the pocket. We saw how he tore his ACL in this particular ball game. So what changes for Mahomes? First, it has to start mentally. Okay, if I make the same moves, will I re-injure it or will I go back out there and get hit? Is it okay? Yeah, I'm cleared for contact, but am I really cleared to go and play mentally? And that's what I want to see from him right out of the gate. And then secondly, what changes around his game? Does he become more of just a stationary pocket guy? Does he become a guy that's going to be on the move when you design these sprint outs and rollouts? Those things change physically for him within this game because this is his first ACL, if I'm not mistaken, and we haven't seen this version of Patrick Mahomes yet. And that's one of those injuries where it's a stability injury, and if you've never had that and you don't know what that feels like, it feels weird. And when you had it on his right leg, so that's his plant leg, and now he has left leg. I'm sorry. So that's his going forward leg. So now it's like, okay, can I drive that ball? Can I get things going? So does it change his game is what I'll be looking forward to seeing, and that's something that's going to have to happen when we see him get back out there on the field.
You make the point of what changes in his game. I'm also interested what changes around his game because you offered the Brady reference point here. Personnel did change around him. There's always been a Patriot way of building things inside out. It's an offensive line that needs to be retooled, if not rebuilt. It's a running game that needs plenty. You go out and get a home run hitter and one of the greatest of all time around Tom Brady. What is Brett Veach thinking right now?
So this is obviously unfamiliar territory for these Kansas City Chiefs. So first of all, their scouts and their front office and personnel department are going to be far more busy than they ever have been, right? Usually they're splitting their time. They're preparing for their next opponent because they're playing deep into January, into the first couple weeks of February, and they're kind of keeping an eye on the draft, right? Kind of keeping an eye on combine. Now, but you know that you're not even trying to figure it out on mock drafts because you're picking 30, 31, 32. Now you're picking in the top 18, right? Guaranteed is where you're going to be. And so what you look at the Senior Bowl in Mobile and all the other all-star events that Emory covers so well for us and others, that is what you are going to be focused on if you are the Chiefs, because you are going to need some cheap labor for the Kansas City Chiefs, because you have a lot of money tied up in the quarterback. You have a lot of money tied up in Chris Jones. They have spent money at the offensive line. Probably chose wrong not keeping Joe Tooney around and ultimately paying Trey Smith. They've had a lot of injuries up front, but they're going to have to find a running back. They're going to have to retool at wide receiver outside of Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. They're going to have to find a tight end. And that's just the offensive side of the ball, forgetting the issues that they have defensively, certainly in the defensive secondary. So all of these things are going to take place where it's not just a fix in the second week of March when free agency opens and you just go spend money like, let's say, the New England Patriots did because they had the cap space. This is a team that has been winning, has been trying to keep it together, so they don't have that money necessarily to go spend. They're going to have to figure it out in the draft.
On the day that the dynasty was officially put on pause, it's Patrick Mahomes with a torn ACL as well. Gentlemen, thank you for the thoughts. As always, Patrick Mahomes, shortly before this news official, releasing his own statement reading, "Don't know why this had to happen, and not gonna lie, it hurts. But all we can do now is trust in God and attack every single day over and over again." Mahomes goes on to say, "Thank you, Chiefs Kingdom, for always supporting me and for everyone who has reached out and sent prayers. I will be back stronger than ever."
Didn't happen. There was a moment in this ball game, late third quarter, he had 0 yards passing. 0 yards passing. And it wasn't like they weren't throwing the football. They just weren't getting things going in the passing game. And outside of that, he was running for his life the entire ball game. So we were giving the Kansas City Chiefs grace and considering them, they can still get in.
That's right.
But if you look at the realness with how they played, they've been a bad team for quite some time this season.
Yeah.
But because of the legacy that they've created.
The decade.
The goodwill they are giving.
Yes,
because of the
we were
things
like,
they have done.
and then we said, if they get in, we still believe they had a legit shot to win a championship.
Yeah.
But the reality is they haven't been good.
Emory, we just saw the play once again, and I know everything slowed down is easier to see. Do you see anything, players taking care of players there? We don't want to point fingers for the reason things happen, but it looked rather innocuous and maybe avoidable. What did you see on the play?
I always say injuries are a freak occurrence. We've seen Mahomes get tackled like this and run like this forever, right? So he just stepped down wrong on the grass.
He's had the ankles before.
Exactly. And then his weight falling forward and all that force on the leg and the awkward step, that's how you get that injury. It's just unfortunate, man, because when you think about Patrick Mahomes and what he means to his team, he means everything. But I do feel like what we've seen from the Chiefs the last 2 seasons is a direct line to the loss of Eric Bieniemy. When Bieniemy was there calling the plays and was running a tight ship, we didn't see all the miscommunication, the minor things that they were. This was a game for Kansas City where they just looked off.
Yeah.
Nope, they wasn't tying up loose ends. It wasn't disciplined, and that was this game and how it went down for Mahomes. Kind of embodied the entire season for them. So I think when you lose a coach that had everyone playing with their head on straight and locking into the details, games like this and the season like this will happen.
Season over season, personnel, coaching, it always changes. A lot's going to change for the Kansas City Chiefs because anytime we've seen Patrick Mahomes as the starter, the season doesn't end until Championship Sunday, if not later, and a trophy in the trophy case more times than not. Not more times than not, but quite often. Mac, when they move forward and they redefine themselves, as we start to project that team, the guy that just got injured is the thing you're building around. What sort of questions do you have for the Chiefs moving forward as they try and reignite a year from now?
2 things that when I look at the Chiefs, when I see some of the problems, they lack talent. both sides of the football field, especially in the secondary defensively, which shouldn't be a surprise because they've lost so many key contributors over the last few years with their success where other teams pluck some of their best players. So talent is an issue. And shoring up the offensive line. When you look at some of the high-level quarterback play from what we've seen, they have a nice sense of protection. What we saw this season was basically what we saw in that Super Bowl loss against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that one game.
That's right.
That one game, but we saw this multiple games.
Now, there have been a lot of injuries,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
And they were on the backup left tackle, and Jalen Moore went down in this game. They were already down 3 offensive linemen who were inactive going into this game. So there is that. They did take a look at the offensive line, and clearly it didn't work. And then you have the injuries, and then you have sending away Joe Thuney to the Chicago Bears, where they decided we're going to take Trey Smith over Joe Thuney. That was essentially the math that they did, and probably not the right call.
Eric
right?
Bieniemy also in Chicago with Joe Thuney.
As the running backs
tie those
coach.
2 things together.
Now, lastly, what I would say is running back and running game. 4 games this season, Patrick Mahomes led the team in rushing. They went 0-4 in those games today against the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers have a fantastic defense led by Jesse Minter, but Isaiah Pacheco was the leading rusher. So not Patrick Mahomes. That's the good news.